Hey YouTube, this is SEL0320. To my great excitement, I've finally gotten to do something that I never thought I would ever do. I just watched the original cut version of Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. What this one is called, and I can give you the link in the description bar below, it's called The Harmony's Star Wars Despecialized version. Okay, so basically take the authentic version before they did like the back shoots, the different things that happened in between of the storyline, as well as like Fox distribution of different points in the movie where it had to be cropped out and changed. This is before all that, the original cut, but then somebody decided they wanted to work with their friends, work with the group to make this in Blu-ray format, and I can say this, first off, this was amazing. Like, I'm looking at this and I'm like, they should have never changed a thing, because this is beautiful. All they needed to do is just convert it to remastered and just leave it as is, because oh my gosh, this was so beautiful. I didn't even realize that when this initially came out in 1977, it received and won over 6 different Academy Award Oscars for, I know it was for editing, sound, best score, John Williams, and oh, alright. So just like I would do any other review, I'm going to go through the dissections of visual scope, acting, and then storyline. But it's hard to do this because this movie in and of itself defined science fiction. Yes, there was Battlestar Galactica. Yes, there was like, A Space Odyssey. But this defined a generation. On a cinematic level, on a sound level, and just on a science fiction level, it was impeccably amazing. So the visual immersion in this one, it's a 10, first off. When I was looking at certain sequences when they were on, Tatooine, when I was looking at them just kind of like in the sand area, and the first shots with R2-D2 and C-3PO, just the scope of it, it was so realistic that I was like, this feels great. Even when you see Luke finally on this little speeder that he had to eventually sell, it was so awesome as far as the visual scope, as far as that's concerned. But even then, when you see what happens with, I mean, like you should know, if you haven't watched this before, there are spoilers in this. I apologize if you've never seen it before, but I just want to make sure I keep everything clear. When you see Luke and he goes back to the location where his uncle was, and he just kind of sees their bodies laid to the side, I was like, man, the way that they captured it, on a cinematic level, it was amazing shots. Like, because you get to see him decompress instead of explode, which I thought he was going to explode and emote, and it was just like, he's determined to get vengeance upon the situation. Not just that, even when they had him first on the first shot, when you see Darth Vader for the very first time on, the Star Destroyer, and like, when they finally get to a panned out version of Leia, like, it's just every sequence is beautiful. I mean, when I think this most of the time for me, if I see it on TBS or something like that, I think it's so cheesy. But when I see it in high definition, and I see it how people saw it when they initially saw the original one, I was like, dude, when they are going and trying to stop the Death Star by trying to get these two, blasters into this sinkhole, which seems preposterous, and why do you have to do it that way? Why would they even have like that as a potential, like, it shouldn't be possible. More I looked at it, I understood why they did it that way, because when I looked at the visuals of actually seeing these ships move and maneuver, I was like, I don't even see the green screen. This is 1977, okay? And like, they use puppet animation, they use practical effects, they use great visual effects. I tell you, y'all, I know it's not just this decompressed version, because I'm looking at it from a practical standpoint. Every single set design, every single character, even from Darth Vader himself, and the way that he walks, the way he interacts with different things. There are certain times where I saw stuff peaking, but it was few and far between when I could sit there and say, man, that's some terrible CG, or man, that's way too much CG. It is the perfect kind of blend, because this is, it was just perfect. That's all I can really kind of say. As far as the sound, John Williams, for every single situation that happens, there is an iconic sound that goes on, specifically when you see Luke looking upon the vastness of, you know, where he was at and trying to get out of the situation, that score comes up and I'm like, this is classic John Williams. But it's like, if I had never seen it before and I'm looking at it for the first time, it would literally captivate me. Because when you think about space, you don't know what space is kind of like. And this is kind of the first hand of bring you into it. Like every single scene brings you in the fold of this world. But if the music and score was not there, if it was kind of like off pitch or too much or too less, then it wouldn't have been as impactful. So it's like every single sequence that happens with every single shot, it's almost as though they shot every sequence in conjunction with every single time where they had like a set for each different orchestrated song that's going up. And I love that. I loved it. So 10 out of 10 there. The acting in this. Now this is the thing, okay? Because I looked at all these prequels, and I had a hard time coming even to this one just because of the prequels. The thing that I realized that the prequels didn't get right is that when I listen to Luke, and when he's interacting with the droids, or when he's interacting with Han, he's talking like this is a real life situation, not like this is rehearsed or campish. Like when I heard when I heard Anakin, the little Anakin, he was talking, interacting, or even like a kind of a mid-aged Anakin in episode 2, when I heard him interacting with certain things, these one-liners, it was just so off-putting that it was trying to bring me to something that I've already seen before. When I'm looking at this, when I see Anakin, like, it's like Ben Kenobi, like, who is Ben Kenobi? I know of like, you know, like, I know of Ben Kenobi, I don't know who Obi-Wan Kenobi is, and he was sitting there interacting with these droids, and it's just so gratifying to actually hear the dialogue. Like the dialogue, one, the script was written well, but the execution of each actor was good as well. Because I mean, even like the sequence where Leia, Han, Chewie, and Luke were about to get crushed, that could have come so cheesy really easily. But looking at it again, I'm looking at it, I'm like, these they are afraid. They're trying to get out of the situation, and they're not, you know, even Han's trying to get Leia up, and she's interacting and being like, kind of like, not indecisive, but she's being like combative even when he's trying to help her. And just the dialogue is really fluid. It's not that just that they have great chemistry. They were allowed to interact like this was real life scenario. Even when Darth Vader is getting questioned upon his motives of like, man, you're lost to the Force. Like this is a dying breed. Like you need to kind of step down. He reacts in emotion and chokes the man out. It's not just, oh, I have omnipotent power, now I'm going to choke you. No, it's like out of emotion and out of okay, you don't have respect for what I've done. I've built what you're standing on, essentially. And that's the thing. Like, every single person in the dialogue, whether it be James Earl Jones' voice as Darth Vader, amazing. Luke Skywalker, as a kid in this one, I don't take him as an adult, I take him as a kid, and his interactions is so upbeat and emotional and jarring. And when I first looked at it, I was thinking, when I was a little kid, I was like, man, what in the world is this? I didn't understand it. But if you've lost your uncle and your aunt, the people that raised you, and then you've just lost the next person that was the closest connections you had to your dad, you would be emotional too. But at the same time, he handled it so well that the way that the scripting did, all I can say is Mark Hamill did an amazing job with his performance as Luke, solidifying him as not just the hero, but somebody that needs help. And every other person behind that, even like Han. Harrison Ford did a great job as Han Solo. Like, it's defining. I mean, it's not just me saying it because it's very obvious, you know, he's an iconic character. But when you actually really sit there and look to the one-liners and the funny banters, they're fluid. It's not like they're trying to be cheesy about the way they're interacting with each other. It's just, this is how their character is. And they combat because of that. It's not that, okay, I'm trying to define who I'm supposed to be. It's that they are who they are, you know. And Leia, even though she has a lot of faults, like in the way she interacts with them, kind of rudeness, kind of really flirtatious, and kind of indecisive in the way that she's kind of interacting with both these men. But yet at the same time, she's courageous, brave. Because I mean, when Dantooine was, what was it, Dantooine, or I can't remember which the solar system was that got destroyed. When they questioned her about, you know, give me the location of the rebels, and she kind of did, quote unquote, but even Darth Vader was like, yeah, she would never willingly do that, you know. And it kind of defined her as a character, just those small nudges. And there's no cracks in between the written. Now, I know George did a great job writing this, as well as directing it. The thing is that, I mean, looking at this again, I really enjoyed it a second time all over again. I mean, everybody did a great job. Even R2-D2, C-3PO, of course, always, even though you never hear him, it's R2-D2 that's the interpreter that makes you understand what he's saying. If R2-D2 was not actually doing that, then there would be no understanding of how cunning and brave C-3PO is, so they work in conjunction together. You can't have one without the other because it's just a little droid that's going around doing stuff. And he's showing that no matter what, this droid is going to try to help. He's going to try to do right. And seeing all the way through, it means so much more in this one. That's because, like, I look at, like, the progression of Obi-Wan, what he's seen. Like, this man is probably going through the utmost PTSD. He lost everyone. I mean, everyone, everything, his legacy, which is Anakin, and he's trying to bring encouragement to a boy that basically symbolizes the very thing that he failed in. And it's like, when you see him interacting with Luke, it's so defining of his character and what he's grown into being. And it's like, I mean, I enjoy Ian McGregor's character in, you know, the original prequels, but it's like, in this one, even like the fight sequence, it was out of emotion. Seeing the prequels and looking at this, it was like, they knew we have to end this fight, basically. Even though, like, Darth was like, you don't know who Obi-Wan really is. And if you do not do something about this, you know what, take it back. I need to be the one to take care of it. And so that's why I really love their fight sequence more now, because it meant so much more. Because if you don't know, the last review that I did for Revenge of the Sith, I was talking about when Yoda talked to Obi-Wan about meeting up to teach him something about basically going transcending beyond life and death, essentially. And it's so funny because Anakin would have learned that had he would have done the right thing, because Yoda would have eventually passed it on to Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan would have eventually passed it on to Anakin. So it's so interesting symmetry that is what Yoda taught him, that after he dies, that he can be able to come back and be able to, with the usage of the Force, be able to interact, be able to help, be an encouragement. And that's the thing that he had said to Darth Vader, and he didn't understand that because he went a different route to the dark side. And so when he sat there and said that if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful, you can really imagine, he really didn't get that. Even when you sit there and see him stepping on the clothes, like, where's his body at? You know? And so that made more sense. I like that small exact thing that they added into Revenge of the Sith that made that more defining in this one. So it just adds on to the story. So the acting, like I said, acting was great. I gave the acting a 9 out of 10. I didn't see anything weak in it. I will say that Han shot first. In the originals, this dude, I'm sitting there looking, and the dude's kind of questioning him. He's like, yeah, you got to get back this money, and we got to meet up. He's like, look, I'm not about to die for this situation. I got stuff to do. He's like, yeah, that's the idea, basically. And he says one other word. He don't pull out his blaster. Han already has his blaster out. Also, you see, pow! The dude's out. The dude didn't even shoot. I was like, what? I mean, I can show y'all a post video. Just let me know in the comments section below. I might go and post that up just for the heck of it. I don't want to post it in this video because I don't want to have to deal with any copyright stuff, but I'll do it later on just for the heck of it, so I don't really care. Story. It's a science fiction epic that defined a generation and encouraged people to not just believe in the impossible, but to literally imagine it as something that is plausible in the future. And that's the thing. Like, and I sit there looking at the story, and I'm looking at, you know, the prequels. Even in this one, I was like, this is amazing storytelling, because when they're not being cheesy and they're not having random characters like Jar Jar Binks and they're not trying to be something from the past, it's like I'm looking at this one specifically, I'm like, this is so honestly epic, because you're seeing all these different factions. You see the rebels, you see the empire, you see the corruption, you see the comparisons that even at probably in the 1970s, where you have corrupted bureaucrats and you have like an infrastructure or Wall Street that's being diminished and controlled by a centralized government for certain specific reasons, whether it be war or whether it be for another reason. And I think that's what kind of inspires this story to go on. And it's easily relatable once you kind of immerse yourself into the story, because you know that you want to be on the side of the rebels, but you don't know what is their end game, where did they kind of come from. And you can kind of see that in the prequels, but it doesn't define it as well as seeing an actual whole planet getting destroyed for what? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, in the third one we saw like Jedi faction get taken out, and we saw throughout most of the prequels like the corruption of the Empire going through Palpatine, which we don't even see Chancellor Palpatine or Darth Sidious in this one at all. Matter of fact, it's only implied in this one that like Darth Vader is the only one left of the Force after Obi-Wan, which we now know, of course, that's not true once we see The Empire Strikes Back. So I'll get to that review soon. But even watching all these different things, from how Destiny found Luke, that Luke was this kind of kid that he was content, but he was not. He wanted to leave, but at the same time, when the opportunity came for him to go and help Obi-Wan, he was kind of reluctant to do it, because he's kind of destructuralized himself into listening to his uncle and trying to help out with the farm and all this kind of stuff. And then after they died, it was like something arose in him that was always there. The thing was that it's a direct comparison to Anakin, because Anakin, he was enslaved. It wasn't that he even had a father figure. And that's one of the things that's a great parallel to watch between the prequels and the original trilogy. But it was like once they actually did have Obi-Wan introduced into it, and him teaching Luke about the Force and the process behind it, even when they were on the ship, and like people like Han not believing in the Force, and even Leia just kind of doubting everything they were doing. It was like by the end of the movie, they dared to believe the impossible, which was the Force. Through progression of certain things that were happening with this kid, with themselves. It was like all of them found something within themselves that they didn't expect. And that's the thing, even with the scoundrel Han Solo, like, I mean, if you look how many people this dude killed in this movie, it would blow your mind, because like every 5 seconds he wasn't missing the shots. Like, I mean, I was like sitting there, he was like, did he just take out a wall? You know, I was like, this dude is, you know, a badass. Even Luke, like, he's untrained and he's going in such a way that it's natural talent. And I think, like I said, the whole process of light being there, which was Obi-Wan Kenobi encouraging Luke encouraging everyone else, it was like the growth of the Force is kind of maneuvering, where in the prequels, it was the growth of the dark side. It was corrupting, manipulating everything. And that's the whole reason why I guess A New Hope. But the thing was, I think when it first came out, it was just called Star Wars. I don't think it was called A New Hope up until, was it the 80s? Maybe mid-90s? I don't know. But anyway, I think it was initially just Star Wars. But for a story to go the depths that it did, to be able to add all these different kind of alien kind of characters and make them seem really menacing. Like the prequels kind of made them feel campish. You know, I mean, there was never a moment I was like, man, I don't want to run into these dudes. It was like, yeah, these are, you know, kind of corny characters that are CG. But when you have like puppet animations, that's one thing about puppet animation. When you actually see like somebody in a suit or a puppet and it's a dark setting, it makes you really assess, like, is this real or not? You know what I'm saying? Like, even though you know it's not, there's something in the dark recesses of your mind that kind of thinks that. And that's one of the things about going through the story in this one, is that you don't know what you're going to expect. Like, especially when Luke got attacked. And Obi-Wan is forced to kind of defend Luke by cutting the dude's arm off. It was like, that's the danger that's going on within the universe. And that's the dissension that's going on everywhere, specifically in that planet. But even the hostility of like the stormtroopers and their weight, it was just a lot that I can't go through everything, but I will say that when everything was all said and done, it was like it was a well-deserved victory, but you knew that was just a battle. It wasn't like, you know, the end-all, be-all for the war. You knew that Darth Vader was going to kind of make a return. You saw certain nudges about what his end game was trying to be. But at the same time, you know, Luke is there, and so what does that mean for the progression of the story? Where are these characters going to go? And that's the thing I love about it. It's almost like kind of like Batman Begins in the sense of like I'm more intrigued to see where this is going to go next. Even though if they had never made any others, this could stand alone by itself. If they had never made another one, that's the thing that I didn't think about going into this one. If I had never saw Empire Strikes Back, never saw the prequels, and I looked at this one, like, you know what? This was a great science fiction film. Like, this was amazing. Like, because they could have just went on a different series or something totally different, and this still would stand this test of time. Just the number one, and that, in my book, makes this one of the best films ever. I'm trying to think if there was anything I could kind of say that I didn't like about the film. I think that the final sequencing with when they were on the fighters, I think that drug out a little bit too long. No, I know what happened. After they were able to leave and after Ben Kenobi died, I kid you not, like, I almost fell asleep. Because once they made it back and they were kind of talking about what they were going to do with the Death Star and stuff like that, I was just like, man, this is kind of dragging on a little bit, you know. And it might not be a pacing thing. It might have been just me tired. But even like when they were actually, you know, trying to take out the Death Star, I was like, really? I'm sitting there looking at the seconds on this clock, and I'm looking at how long it's taking them to do this. And the thing was, I didn't realize when I was younger is that they were on a timetable because the Rebel base was about to get discovered and blown up. I didn't even realize that when I was younger. And so, looking at it now, I understand why they need to go ahead and get this done now. If Luke had not done that, they would all be dead and wiped out. That would have been it. So, it was really end all be all, like, this had to happen. And that is what the prequels were lacking, is that there were no real stakes there. You know what I'm saying? And part of that because they couldn't, because we've already solidified where the characters are going to go. So, it kind of crippled in that standpoint, but they could have switched to certain other levels. But I think that was the only thing. It was kind of like run a little bit too long. Like, all right, you know, I'm seeing all these dudes getting killed, trying to get through this, and Luke's the last one. I'm like, some of y'all could have just kind of pulled away, you know. Like, I was sitting there like, all right, he didn't listen, he just died, he didn't listen, oh, he listened, he still died. But it was like, I don't know, it was a little bit too much for me. But either way, I give this one a 9.5 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed it watching HD. I cannot wait to watch Empire Strikes Back. Hopefully later on tonight. I gotta go and do some editing and bring y'all, hopefully y'all will be able to see it really soon, probably by the time y'all watching this, all the prequel discussions that we've officially done. That was my treat to y'all, and like I said, I'm gonna be watching Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi within the next few days. It is Star Wars week at JBS. May the Force be with you. God bless y'all. I'm out.